Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we have a preview of Bantam West. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we have a preview of Bantam West by Bantam Planet. Now this is a sponsored preview, this is also a demo copy in front of me, so rules and components and things like that are subject to change. I think the biggest change that could be made of this game is the rulebook that's still being finalized, but this is a second edition of Bantam. So this is an existing game that is tried and true, and this is the second edition, and you can check out the GameFound link down below for everything that they have planned, because this is a crowdfunding campaign. And with that, if you have been a fan of Bantam West, they're also adding an expansion. So there's the Graves and Gold expansion that you're able to get along with the base game, but a lot of things have been streamlined between the first and second edition. Now, this game is a very big game. As you can see, you have these different biome terrains that you are going within, as well as your town tile. So the game itself is pretty big, and a lot of what has changed is streamlining all of that to make it a bit easier to see how everything lines up. And then also, you used to have 4 grit tokens, which are actions every turn, and now there's only 3. So that has also made the pace of play a little bit quicker, where honestly you don't feel like you're not doing enough with only the 3 grit tokens, because I have played the first edition of this game as well. So just to know that this is a second edition that is a little bit better, and now there is the expansion that you can add, and there's also little goodies that they're in the game. You're going to build things like cabins, and they're going to be super useful for you. Now normally your cabins are going to be these wooden blocks that you're placing out, but there's also miniatures that are available, so that's just something else to know, that there are miniatures for the different cabins, as well as the different things that you're going to be fighting against. So there are going to be some creatures that you fight, such as like this bear over here, but there's also going to be people that you fight. So there are miniatures for all of those. So that's just something else that you're able to see down in the campaign. Now, I've talked a lot about what you can get, but Bantam West is going to be an open world sandbox adventure where everyone is competing for the most notoriety points, because you're trying to be the coolest gunslinger around, but there are multiple paths to victory. So you have your to-do lists, and that's going to be your main source of notoriety points. But as you can see here, we have our to-do list, and it gives you a left side and a right side. You choose from 2 cards at the beginning of the game, but that's going to kind of guide you with what you're trying to do. Because yes, you are having combat with both NPCs as well as other players, but there's a whole lot of other things that you're doing throughout the game, including gaining resources, discovering different places, crafting those different things, and then you're also trying to upgrade your personal kit with things like mounts, additional weapons that you can get, gear, as well as these different endeavors that you are able to get better and better at. So first you're a novice, and then you'll be able to end up as a master, but everything is kind of going to be guided by these to-do lists that you have down here. So depending on your playstyle, you may choose to-do lists that work for you, but just to give you an example of things that we're trying to do: sell 4 of the same good in one sale, craft 2 different gear in one turn, or sorry, 2 different goods in one turn, spend $15 in one turn. So you can see where that's going to want us to build up and have a lot of different things. Now, one thing to note: sell 4 of the same type in one sale. You have your bag here, and you're only able to carry so many things. So you have your regular resources, and you have 4 spots, as well as 2 spots for goods and 2 spots for heads, which you're going to be able to cash in later. But if you want to have more storage, you're going to have to do certain things, such as gain mounts that will give it to you, or perhaps riders that are going to help you as well. So this is a very big game, a lot of things chain in it, but just to give you an example of what you're trying to do, you're trying to complete these different to-do lists to gain yourself notoriety points, and you'll base the length of the game on how many you're trying to go for. So if you want a very quick game, players can go to 5 notoriety. A typical game, you will play to 10, or you can play to 15 or 20, depending on what you want to do. And if you do play in a game that is over 10 notoriety, then you're going to have special items that you're able to unlock for your character as well. So those are pretty cool that you can look forward to. And all of these characters are going to be very different, where they have their things that they start off with, as well as their starting skills. And these skills are going to be extremely important in trying to navigate the game. Now, one thing to note is there is a lot of game here. So usually I go in a specific order and go through phases or something like that. But with this, as you can see, a lot of things all tie into each other and things you want to upgrade to be able to get all of those notoriety points to win the game. So I am going to be going over the game, and I'm going to kind of just be explaining visually everything that I have in front of me, where I might not go through the different phases in a sequential way. You do have your 3 grit tokens that you have every turn. So players will take turns spending their grit tokens to take different actions, and I will definitely go over those, but I am going to walk us a lot around this map because it is such an open world game where you're trying to explore different areas, and yes, as I said, combat is going to be very beneficial for you for being able to gain rewards from the NPCs or perhaps take things from other players because you'll get to loot them if you beat them in combat, but there's going to be a lot of other things that you're also trying to do, and one of the major parts of the game is that when you pass through certain areas, you're also going to trigger different events. So these events are going to kind of interrupt your turn, where it's going to trigger when you pass through certain areas, and you're going to be able to read those, make a decision, hopefully gain something, but perhaps bad things may happen, and then you'll read the different entries depending on what you chose to do. So that's going to be the general pace of play of the game, is that you're trying to be as good at combat as possible, perhaps engaging when you need to, or being able to defend yourself when other people are attacking, and you're also trying to move around, gather resources from the different areas, see what you can uncover, craft those into even better things, interact with the shops to buy yourself weapons, gear, and mounts, and having these event cards trigger. Now, these 4 tiles are going to be your terrain, and each type of terrain is going to provide a different type of resource. So you can see the resources that are here, and you are trying to gain those when you are in that particular spot. You're able to use your different endeavors as an action with one of your grit tokens to try to harvest from them. So here you can see that we're trying to gain the herbs here, and if we chose to try to do so, we would be able to spend one of our available grit tokens and then roll to forage the herbs. So with this, there is a ×2 die, meaning that we're able to do it twice. So we're going to roll 2 die, and luckily for us, it's going to test our sneak ability. So our sneak is, we need a 6 or higher to be able to forage these different herbs, and our sneak is already a 4, and we're adding that to our die, which is going to be really good for us. So we have a 5 and a 2, and even with a 2 plus that 4, we're meeting that 6. So luckily with this roll, we're able to gain 2 more of these resources and add them here into our storage. But as you can see, our storage is now full, so we wouldn't be able to do that again, and it did cost us a grit. Now, going through these other abilities that you have as your endeavors, which is an action you're able to do on your turn, there is also examples of you turning things into things. So here you can see we would spend a grit token, and there's nothing above it, so we're only able to do it once. But when you do so, you're able to spend 2 of the herbs to then turn it into the potion. So when you do so, this is going to be something that you're able to spend to heal 1 health, and you only have 5, so you're really going to want to keep an eye on your health, but now we have those that we're able to use. Now again, hunting would allow us to gain hides from these areas instead. So that's just one of the things that you're doing on your turn where you are trying to gain different resources. Now another thing that you're able to do is discard a grit token to move. So I did just undo that. We're going to take that off, and now we're starting off with our 3 fresh grit tokens. So to move, you're able to move up to your speed. So our current speed is 4, but if we were to get ourselves a mount, our speed will increase by that amount. So we're going to move 4 and go 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Sorry, I'm going to have us go 4 here just for the sake of the example. So we're going to move through 4 there, and since we crossed through this area with the exclamation point, we're going to read one of these event cards. So you are able to move along the white paths. Certain paths may be more difficult. You don't really need to know too much about that part, but just know that normally you're trying to move along these white lines. Now, ending here, we're going to end our movement and then move on to our card. So here in the Midland Plains, we would have Devoted Fan. An eager voice shouts from behind you, "Hey there, you're that deadly stranger I've been hearing about." You turn around and see a young man with holes in his hat and tattered clothes, but he's got a certain swagger to him. "I can shoot, I can ride, and I can work. Think I could ride with you?" You look him up and down, and after some thought, you can either nod and motion for him to follow, or you can convince him to do some odd jobs, then scram, and that you would test your persuasion skill, which our persuasion's pretty low. we need to roll a 5 or higher to be able to do that. Or listen kid, I ride alone. So I think our best bet is to try to take him on as a rider, so we will nod and motion for him to follow. Now, this is very much a prototype copy, so these are just printed out, but this will be in a book for you. But these are your different event outcomes. So where this is MP2, because we're in the Midland Plains, we're going to go here to Devoted Fan. The kid falls behind you with the stars in his eyes, gain a rider. So that's going to be these riders up here that you're able to gain. And when you do that, you're able to choose which one you want to do, which will give you different things. So for example, this one here would give us +1 sneak, which would be really great because we're already pretty high on our sneak stats. We could also gain an additional storage, or we could get someone who is good at bargaining. For example, this one can sell herbs for $2. So normally you can trade in your different things over here, trade it in at a -1 discount. So in this aspect, you wouldn't have that. You would be able to trade in herbs for the $2. But in this case, if we were getting a rider, I think I would have us choose to gain an extra sneak. We would place them over here. We would gain a sneak in this slot. And then something that's very important is that you would actually gain a notoriety point as well. So you can see here the symbol for that. And when it's covered, we're going to gain 1 for having our rider. Now on our notoriety track, there are also benefits that you're going to be able to gain. So when you do gain that, depending on the slots that you end up in, you're going to be able to gain certain things. So for example, this first slot here is gaining a character combat card. So underneath your character, you're going to have your special combat cards that are unique to each of your playable characters, and you're going to be able to grab one of those and add it into your combat deck. Now other things that you'll be able to trigger is leveling up a skill, which is going to be increasing one of these again, or leveling up an endeavor. So when you do that with your endeavors, you're going to be able to change them from novice to adept, and then once they are adept, you'll be able to master them instead, and once you do master them, you will gain a notoriety point as well. So that's another way for you to gain these points. The major way is going to be going through this to-do list and trying to cross off as many things as you can, but a few other extra things along the way are going to provide that for you as well. Speaking of, another place that you're able to gain it is when you hit the 7th track of any of your skills. So if we were able to increase our sneak up to level 7, then we would be able to gain a notoriety point for that as well. Now I didn't have us end here in this acre. An acre is any of these circular spots, because as you can see, they're all color coded, and this would have been a green spot, which is in line of sight to this other green spot where this NPC is currently hiding out, and their range is 0 to 1. So if I did stop there, they would have engaged us in battle during the end of our turn. But instead, I'm going to have us continue moving to interact with this player over here to show you what combat is going to look like. So I would spend another grit token to go 1, 2, and then 3 into this area. Now you are able to start attacks from a spot away if you have something that is ranged. So there are a few weapons up there that are ranged, but we currently have Serenity, which is going to be our knife. So we are going to have to move directly into this space to engage this player with combat. Now, combat in the game is going to be pretty fast-paced and unique, where it's almost a rock, paper, scissors system where certain cards are going to be canceling other cards out. So players are going to have a hand of 4 cards, and then they're going to choose one to play, but before you shuffle up your deck, you're going to be able to add any weapon cards that you want to add in as well. So we have Serenity, which is our knife. We're going to add this in and then draw our hand of 4 cards before we decide what we're going to play. So again, everyone's starting cards are all the same, but as you add different weapons, as well as your character cards that you're able to unlock, you're going to be able to really customize your combat deck. So after shuffling here, you can see, here we'll stop there, we're going to draw 4 cards, and these are going to be the ones that we have available for this current round. So we have block, tackle, block, and grapple, and you can see that they all counter certain things as well. So if we think that they might be attacking us, we could choose to use a block. So we'll just do that for the sake of the example, and we'll say that this is the card that we chose. Now, players simultaneously choose them, but don't reveal them. So for an example here, this player player may have all of these cards available and they have 2 brawls. So that brawl might seem really good for them. They may choose to do it, and little do they know we've actually planned against that. So players are going to simultaneously choose which cards to play and then flip them over, and you can see that our block is actually blocking brawls, whereas the brawl would be able to block this type of a card which isn't being played. So we're able to block it and negate it completely, but if not, it would be able to do 1 damage or move once. But here you can see that we're able to shield if we needed to, but we blocked the brawl, so we are able to move if we choose to move out of the area. Now, we initiated the attack, so we want to be doing damage. So we would continue to go on to another round, draw a card, and decide what might be best for us, perhaps tackling next round. But play is going to continue when you're attacking another player until one of you is reduced to 0 vigor, which is death, or you both choose to end, or you move out of the area. So a way for you to be able to be safe is those maneuver abilities where you're able to move away from a fight instead, but you have to have that card not be blocked for you to be able to trigger that ability. Now, these 2 decks over here are going to be the decks for the NPCs. So the top deck is going to be for the different bandits that you're fighting against on the map, whereas this is going to be for the different beasts that are spawned depending on the calendar. So the calendar is going to have everyone go through different phases of day and then nighttime, and then different beasts will be able to spawn that you can then fight to collect their heads for rewards. Now, another major part of the game is going to be sneaking, because you may want to engage in combat, but you might also want to sneak around. You can see that they have a sneak cost, this one is 3, where you can make a check to attempt to sneak, but another thing that you're able to do is move into hidden areas. So if we wanted to move into this hidden area, we would be protected from any type of line of sight trying to attack us, but you would need to pass that check of a 6 sneak. So for us, that seems pretty easy, that here we have the 3, we would add our 5, which would be an 8, meaning that we would pass that when moving into that area. Now, there are a few other actions that you're going to spend your grit tokens on. So one of them is going to be anything that you see a white box that has a check for you to make. So that's going to mean that you're able to spend a grit token and perform that action. Whether you succeed or not, you're still going to have to spend that grit token. Some of them are going to have a clear background instead, meaning that that's a free action, so you can just do it if you want. You may still have to suffer consequences if you fail, but as you can see here, if we went to burst mounts, we would have to be in this area, and it actually provides 1 shield of cover for us, but we are able to interact with the shop and purchase mounts as a free action. But there are also these actions down here that we are able to do. For example, we would be able to try to convince a mount to come with us, and if we do so, then we are going to try to make a strength check of 8. So you can see where that's very difficult, that perhaps for something that costs sneak for us we would be good at, but anything else we would have to build up our skills to be able to do these different actions, and if you fail them, you'll pay the cost in the red. So this one, for example, you would take a damage, or this one you would be kicked out and moved out of Mirth's mounts, but for other things you could even be jailed for the different things that you're doing. Now, speaking of our mounts, when you buy a mount card, you're also then able to buy saddles and saddlebags for it. And those are going to be ways for you to enhance them as well. So here you can see a saddle token that gives +1 movement, meaning that this horse would now have a +2 movement, and you're able to add it over here onto the horse. So you can see how it really lines up. And then additionally, you're able to gain saddlebags. For example, this one gives you an extra storage for a raw resource, and you're able to place this over here as well. So this horse went from a 1 movement with 1 storage of a good to a storage of a resource and a 2 movement as well. And whenever you gain a mount, as you can see from the notoriety point here, you're able to gain a notoriety point in that way. So there are going to be a bunch of small ways for you to gain those, but again, as I keep saying, the main way is going to be for you to complete your personal to-do lists. And as you do so, when you're completing these, you'll take one of these check markers and cover the area. Now, all of the different shops are going to provide you different things that you can add to your character. So you are able to purchase weapons, you're able to purchase gear, and you're able to purchase the mounts, but there's also the saloon, and that's going to be an extremely diverse place. So in the saloon, you're able to buy yourself drinks, which are going to do certain things like recovering your health, but you're also able to try to recruit some of those riders. So each rider that you're able to recruit is going to give you a notoriety point, and they're also able to take damage for you. So if you lose a vigor point and take damage, you are able to kill them instead, and they are lost. They don't go back to the saloon because they're dead, meaning that that supply is very limited, and they can also go to jail for you as well. So if you would be arrested for certain reasons, you are able to send them to jail for you instead of going yourself. Now, other things that you're able to do is enter the saloon brawl, and this is where you're going to be able to gain extra combat cards. So there are your character ones that you're unlocking, but there are also additional ones that are available to everyone that you're going to be able to unlock through the saloon. Now, finally, you're going to be able to mount the heads of different things. So you're able to either get riders or different creatures. So as you can see here, we do have our bear head, which we're able to mount, and as they have the notoriety point symbol, when you cover them, you'll also gain a notoriety point for that. Now, one thing to note is that some points are going to not be able to be taken away from you. What I mean by that is that your to-do list, any notoriety point you get is going to be tracked, as well as reaching certain skills, and getting all of these up to your mastered ability, but certain things, such as having your riders, only give you a notoriety point while they are there with you. So if you do use them to take a damage for you or something like that, this will be lost and you will lose your point. Any benefits that you have gained on this track can only be gained once, so even if you lose points, once you recover them, you aren't able to trigger those abilities again, but that's going to be why having certain things that can't be taken away from you or adjusted is going to be extremely important. Another thing that can happen when you are looted when another player beats you in battle is that you're also able to lose your riders or your mounts. So here you can see this ability here for persuasion, and you're able to take mounts from other players, which again would remove the notoriety point from them and perhaps gain it to yourself if you don't already have a mount. Now with mounts, you're only able to ever have one, but you can still steal a better one from an opponent and get rid of yours. Now, throughout the game, players are going to die, but that doesn't mean that you're out for the count, because we are playing as these undead, deadly people that just cannot be stopped. So you are able to be reduced to 0 vigor. If you do so, you will drop your tombstone and lay your mini on its side. Then during the night phase, during resurrection, you're able to be resurrected. So when this happens, you have to do it in a spot that has that particular symbol to be able to be resurrected, and anything that you had in your current inventory will be left where your tomb marker is. So you're going to have your tomb marker, perhaps we died in this battle over here, we would drop our things with all of our stuff and then be resurrected over here. Now we have 2 night phases to be able to get back over there to pick up all of our stuff, otherwise it's just forfeit and we won't get it back, but we will be restored to full vigor. Now there is so much more to this game that you are able to discover. So when you're going through certain areas, you might have certain hazards where you have to make checks to be able to pass through them and be able to do certain things. And there are also going to be certain spots that will provide treasure for you. So there are abandoned cabins and they're usually protected by these NPCs. But once you're able to take them out, there's going to be things inside of those cabins, and they also provide shelter for you. Now you're also able to build out your own cabins, which are going to cost you either money or wood to be able to do so, but once you have your own cabins, they're going to be on the resource spots, and that's going to provide a resource for you every night phase. So that's going to be very, very important, and you're also able to lock them, hopefully keeping things inside of there, but other players are also able to break in. Now there's also a fire component where fires are going to be started, and that's usually going to be bad, where you'll take damage if you take actions in that specific area, but things like your cabins can also be burned down. So fire is going to be extremely important, and you're going to want to try to put that out. As you can see here, these paths would be endurance checks, whereas these would be agility. But again, anytime there's a specific color inside of that box, you're going to be able to add your skill to that check. There are going to be some things that have a black box with a number, and that means that you're just rolling a d6 and finding out the result. But normally you're making these skill checks that will require certain things. Even within your different event cards, you're going to show that they're going to test certain things. So for example, this one would be testing our strength. But all of these are going to kind of show you what you can expect as you're going through them in the game. Now, players do have willpower that they are able to use, and this is going to be extremely important when they are rolling for these different checks. So you are able to spend a willpower to re-roll one of your die, and you're also able to spend an action to gain another willpower back, because if you ever hit this bottom track here, you'll also take a damage. So you are able to use that last bit of willpower, and it may be worth it, but you will have to be able to take the damage to be able to do so. in Bantam West, you're going to have multiple paths to victory. Everyone is trying to work toward that same number of notoriety points, but there are going to be many other things that allow you to do so. So this character that we had in front of us, they were very high in sneak, but depending on what character you play, you may have strengths with other abilities. So when you have your character, you're going to choose your to-do lists, and you choose one of 2 cards for each side. So you have an option of 2 left sides and 2 right sides at the beginning of the game. You can see which ones perhaps synergize together, and based on the different skills that you have, and then you're going to base that on how you're going to play the game. But you're also going to be adapting to the different things that are coming out, because the events are really going to shape what's happening for you, because you're going to want to move from terrain to terrain to have those trigger, because some of them are going to give you some pretty cool stuff. As you saw, we got a rider as well as a notoriety point out of the one that we did. But there's also going to be players fighting each other, so you might want to engage in that combat, because if you beat someone who has more notoriety points than you, you're able to gain one, or perhaps they're able to take out their riders or steal their mount, gaining you even more points as well. But if you see other players fighting each other, then you might focus on something else that will gain you points, such as just completing your to-do list, because checking off those different items, as a to-do list should, does feel very good. Now you're also trying to master these different endeavors that are going to get you better and better at the game, so with that you're trying to be a little bit better with your resource management and trying to increase those abilities for yourself to be a bit more streamlined. You're also trying to increase your different skills, because when you do hit that 7th level, you're able to get a notoriety point from that as well. So there are so many things that you're able to try to focus on, and depending on your to-do lists as well as your starting skills, that will kind of guide you throughout the game, and then you'll be adapting to other players and the choices that they're making to try to get out ahead. So there's going to be a bunch of different ways for you to get these points, such as gaining the riders as well as your mounts, or mounting the different heads of creatures that you're able to take out, but you're also going to just try to complete those to-do lists. So this is a very big game with a lot going on and a lot of replayability, and there's actually a playthrough of 2nd edition over on Tim Chuan's channel. So with Tim and Bonds, that's going to be linked down below, because I think it's very helpful to see what the 2nd edition looks like, how streamlined it is, and what these different actions look like, especially with the events and how fun they can be when those trigger. So if you'd like to check out the game found link down below for everything that Bantam Planet has planned, you're able to do so. This has been a preview of Bantam West. Thank you all for watching the Board Game Co channel. I've been Professor Meg, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!